the director of athletics. Got a little recording in progress. And I love this time of the year. You know, we're finishing up our year, but this is always exciting as we start to welcome the new students that are going to be joining our family here at Loyola, as well as all of you, right? We do see this as a big family. We see this as you all are giving us the opportunity to spend the next 4 years, maybe shorter if you have a transfer student. But we look at this as the opportunity for us to help them over the next few years in their development as students as well as athletes. And we're thrilled to have them come and join our family. I always like to take this opportunity to say, you're going to hear from the experts on our staff who deal with the academic portion, who deal with the our health and safety area, as well as the compliance. So you'll get all the information that you need from them. I like to share that you're in good hands. Your child is in good hands, and we promise that we will take care of them and be here to support them while they're here. But I also like to take the opportunity to say that while we welcome all of you as well into the family, this is really your child's journey. And we appreciate that you're allowing us to help them through this journey. But we also ask for you to trust a little bit that our coaches and all of the experts that are here, as well as the faculty and staff across campus, that we'll do our best for your son, daughter, other that is going to come to us. And we ask for you to give us a little space, and also to give them a little bit of space, right? I promise you that we are here if your child needs anything, that they should come to any of us, and we'll help them through this. But we ask you as well that if they're struggling in any way and sharing feedback with you, that you direct them to those on campus that can help them to maneuver through this, because 4 years from now, or when they graduate, they'll appreciate that, and it'll help them to be a stronger graduate when they get through this. That said, if there's ever an important issue that you are worried about, please let us know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But I promise you that we'll respond if you do have an issue of great concern. But otherwise, that struggle, that students will go through while they're here will make them better and stronger. And our coaches are here to help them through that. I would also ask you to always encourage your student to reach out to the coaches if they have a question. And one of the big ones is about playing time, or when they're going to get on the field or in the pool or in a boat. And your child will usually know. And we just ask for your support that if they don't know, send them back to the coach. I promise you, our coaches want the best for our student athletes, and they'll put them in the best position to, over the course of time that they're here, that they'll have a great experience. I'll leave you with one thought. I myself was a student athlete in college, and I was thinking about the time that I was a first-year student, and I played field hockey. Obviously, I wanted to be out on the field, and in the beginning of the season, I was not out on the field. The person that was playing in the position that I would play was older than I was, and she was more experienced in that position. She was Greek, and her father would stand in the stands, and every time the ball came to her, he would do two things. He would ring a cowbell that we could hear everywhere, and every single time she touched the ball, and he would say, "Shoot, Electra, shoot," and he would scream it. And in hindsight, while we might have thought it was annoying at the time, he was doing a couple of things. He was cheering for his daughter. He was not cheering against anybody else or what have you. He also pretty much must have known nothing about the sport and flat out was just cheering for his daughter because she played defense. She was always about 65 to 100 yards away from the goal and never took a shot on goal. But he was cheering for his child, and he was cheering for our team to win. So I asked you to be like Mr. Theodorides and cheer for your child, cheer for Loyola, And hopefully at the end of the day, you'll all have a great experience here with your child. So welcome, and I'll leave you to the experts in their field, and thank you for being here tonight.
Great. Thank you, Donna, so much. So now we're going to talk a little bit about our office, Student Athlete Support Services, and what we do. So as I mentioned, Colleen and Gab and I are that staff. So this slide has a lot of words. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but just know that our mission really is not just to support your students academically, but also their career development and their psychosocial growth throughout their 4 years here. And so some of the some of the goals, the big things, academic excellence, but inclusive environment is huge for us. We want to make sure that the student athletes feel welcomed, not just in our office space, but just on campus as a whole. But we're also going to push and challenge them to get involved on campus, to find different leadership opportunities, and just really develop in their 4 years here. And then again, just follow all university, NCAA, and Patriot League rules and regulations. So the academic enrichment program is a big portion of what we do. A lot of you have probably heard of it if you came on a recruiting visit and met with any of us. There's two major components to that program. One of them is study hall. They'll hear more about that when they come to campus in the fall, when we do their team meetings and how many hours they have to do and all that stuff. But the other portion is academic meetings. And so each of us work with different specific teams. And so we'll be meeting with your child on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. And so in that meeting, we'll be going over all of their classes. They'll get a planner at the beginning of the year. We'll make sure that they're filling that out with all of their upcoming assignments. We'll have them put their travel schedule on there as well, so they're aware of when they'll not be on campus. And so we'll go over what they have upcoming. We'll go over grades that they get back, and just make sure that they're staying on top of everything. If they feel like they're struggling, or if we feel like they may need some extra support, we may suggest a tutor in that situation. I'll talk about that in a second, but those are just really good weekly check-ins that we have with them throughout that first semester, and then sometimes first year, depending on the team. So the tutorial program, I oversee that program for our department. We have about 75 peer tutors on staff, and then 4 professional tutors. And those tutors cover core classes, major courses, first year through senior year, we have tutors available. We are nationally certified by the College Reading and Learning Association, and the students have taken the classes, get recommended by faculty, and then go through training with our office. The professional staff are teachers in the area, and they tutor for language. And so that students are able to have in-person or online tutoring, which has been really a big benefit for students that are traveling. If you're in season, they can use that at the hotel when they're on the road. Or if anyone lives off campus and wants to just have that from home, it's given that flexibility. And they can have weekly appointments or one-time appointments to review before an exam. So that's available to them all 4 years. They don't have to be in the enrichment program for that. And it's just a great free service for them to have. And I'll turn it over to Colleen.
Unmute, sorry. For those of you who came late, please don't worry. We are recording this and we will send it out afterwards with the PowerPoint, so you're not missing the beginning. We do have a warning system. We want to hold the students accountable. We've been asking them to do a lot, and we expect them to do it. It's really, we're asking them to do things that are only going to help them. So the first warning, if you miss an academic meeting, which those meetings are the same day and time every week, study hall hours, which they have to do 8 hours every week, and or a tutoring appointment, which they are involved in scheduling that day and time. So first warning, if they miss something, it's just a written warning. It's emailed to the student athlete and their coach. Second warning is meeting with the student athlete, their coach, and their athletic advisor. Meeting. And then third warning is a meeting with the student athlete, the athletic director in charge of their sport, their coach, and their athletic advisor. This may seem very punitive, but it's actually more of a red light system because most students are doing everything that they're supposed to do. And when we get past a third warning, there's usually something more going on. Like the student didn't tell us about maybe a death in the family or something that they're struggling with, homesickness. So during those first 3 meetings, they're really caring, you know, what's going on, how can we help you? And then beyond that, the 4th warning, and we hope to solve the problems there and connect them with the counseling center or whatever it is that they might need help with. The 4th warning, they missed their next scheduled competition. And then the 5th warning is suspension from the athletics for a period to be determined by the athletic director. Any study hall warning includes additional 4 hours of study hall. We've had very few 4th and 5th warnings, which makes me very happy. And the ones that we had were just students who really weren't prepared for college, to be quite honest. It was not in the case where we were concerned and had other concerns with the student. It was more that they just didn't want to do the things that we were asking them to do. Okay, advising and other duties. So outside of what we do with the enrichment program is we assist with practice schedules. Every semester when the classes come out, we put together block schedules for the shared fields, meaning Reitz Arena, so basketballs and volleyball, and then anyone over at Ridley with time blocks for every student and every class that they have to take in order to be eligible or in order to graduate in 4 years, which is the ultimate goal. And then the coaches look over that and we identify periods of time needed, including travel, and we try to include time to eat and different things like that that students aren't always thinking about. And then that's how we come up with practice times. And I will say this, we do this because we want your child to major in what they're passionate about. Like our job is to help them find their passion outside of athletics. And so if there's a class that conflicts with practice, which sometimes does happen because we're a smaller school and we have smaller numbers of sections and things like that, it's not going to be held against you. And that includes if you're on one of our nationally ranked teams, down to if you're a novice crew. Just know that that is just something that happens and the coaches understand that, and we work with the coaches, and you just might need to do some extra time on your own, you know, work that out with the coaches. We help Bill Winnick and Liz with the eligibility waivers. We do travel letters at the beginning of the semester so that all the absences are excused absences, which means the student will present that the first day of class, and then they just need to remind their professors, because obviously they might have other student athletes and they're not responsible for remembering everyone's schedule. You might miss tests and quizzes, in which case, again, the student is responsible for reaching out to the professor and seeing when they can make that up. If the professor's not sure that they can do it, then they can reach out to us and we're happy to proctor exams. It happens a lot in the spring during final exam periods, which is really fun for us because we get to travel during postseason, but at the same time, we're not the most popular people because we're proctoring exams. The things we can't do is we cannot assist with grade changes, overrides, and other permissions. We can give advice and have the student athletes need to advocate for themselves in these instances. And again, they just need to come talk to us and we'll tell them the steps necessary. Partnerships on campus. We really partner with everything. Loyola is a small school. I think it's such a great place. This is my 21st year here. And I can tell you there are a lot of people like me that have been here for a long time. So when I say we partner with these people, we're partnering with our friends. We're partnering with other people that want to make your student the best student that they can be upon graduation. So whether that be academic advising and support, we just pre-registered all the first year student athletes with them. Career development, we'll do different things with them to get them introduced and started working with the Career Center from their first year, all the way up to through them getting internships and jobs. We work very closely with the counseling center. Mental health is a major issue, especially after COVID, and students thankfully are starting to identify and talk about it. And so, you know, we definitely partner, and we have a good number of students that work with the counseling center. We work with the dean of undergraduate and graduate students. If there's illnesses, family tragedies, different things, major excuses that a student needs to go home, we'll help connect the two of you all so that it can be excused absences. Disability support services, this is a big one. So if you have a documented learning disability, if you have a physical disability, we need you to register with Disability Support Services. Whether you utilize their services or not throughout your time here, that's going to be up to you. But I recommend you register prior to getting here and sign up for any kind of accommodations that you can get, because I found that most people that come in thinking they don't need accommodations really do need the accommodations, and that's okay. There are accommodations in life. So, it's not something that's frowned upon. It's a lot of student athletes get extra time or testing in a quiet area, note takers, different things like that. And so I recommend that you reach out to Disability Support Services, send your documentation in, and then also have your student sign a waiver allowing Disability Support Services and our office to communicate, because they're not by law allowed to talk to us without that waiver. And we work really well together, and it just solves a lot of issues if we know what's going on with your student and we can work with Disability Support Services. And then just student support and wellness centers, just making sure any students that are in crisis are on the care team radar. And then also our Women's Center, we do a lot of programming with them on mental health, diversity, equity, and inclusion, social justice, LGBTQ+ awareness programming. So you'll see, like, we really do we want your students to experience what all the other students are experiencing. So we do partner with these programs and ask them for help. And now I'm going to turn it over to Gab.
Okay. So we always encourage our student athletes to extend themselves outside of their sports. So here are some photos of like some different events and award shows that we had going on. So there will be like many opportunities for conferences, and also we had a student athlete networking night.
Oops, sorry.
Okay. Student Athletes for Social Justice is a group that was formed in our office. They have put together like multiple programmings. One of our pride possessions is our pride, our pride game night. And another one that we have coming up is our summer conversation series. Okay. Not only are our student athletes competing in the classroom, not only are they competing on the field, they're also competing in the classroom. We had 63 student athletes with 4.0s in the spring. All of our teams have over 3.0 GPA. And then we had 55% of our student athletes make Dean's List. And then I'll hand it over to Grace.
Before we jump to Grace, really quick, I did have one question in the chat. So study hall is mandatory for all first year and transfer students their first semester. And then some teams, it's the entire first year. And then after that point, it's GPA dependent. So no one's able to opt out of it until at least after their first semester. And again, it's all based on GPA. So yeah, Grace, now it's up to you.
Hello. I'm a Moody senior. I'm Grace. I'm on the rowing team, and I am SAC president for this year. And so SAC basically is the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, and we have an executive board, and we help advocate for student athletes on campus by communicating what the needs are of the athletes. And we advocate for mental health awareness, diversity, equity, inclusion, sexual assault prevention and awareness, and One Hand Family, where we come up with ways to support each other as athletes by attending each other's games, our meets, and volunteering in the community. And we also host panels where students themselves can help talk about what's going on in their lives and making other student athletes feel less alone. It's a really great community for your athlete to join. There's a lot of opportunities in the organization or in the group to speak at paneled events, leadership opportunities within the committee, and opportunities like myself. I got to attend a conference at Navy for a couple of days, a leadership conference, and that was a really cool experience that was possible because of being a part of SAC. And also being a part of SA Fresh Day, as I mentioned earlier, has been a great opportunity as well. And so how SAC works is we have a certain number of representatives from each team that participate. And once every 2 weeks, we come together and talk about what's on our mind and how we want to change the school for the better. And yeah, and so I highly suggest you talk to your athlete about SAC, and they'll definitely hear about us on campus. So yeah.
And I'll chime in too, before we move on to John. Well, one, Grace was also just recently selected as one of a handful of seniors as part of our Green and Gray Society on campus. And that's not just student athletes, it's kind of star seniors across the board. She's very involved. And I will say, so we don't have to keep her on this call the whole time, does anyone have questions for Grace now? Just as a current student, not just about SAC, but if you have questions for her, well, you can ask them now before we move on. If not, we'll go on to John.
Yes, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, maybe not. Oh, we got a question. Okay.
All right, what's my biggest challenge as a student athlete? I think at least when you come in as a freshman, I came in during COVID, so it was a little bit of a different situation, but definitely like scheduling and making sure that you have everything organized and having a really good system is really important. And my calls were over Zoom with Andrea during my freshman year, but those calls really help out a lot. And having like, when you go home, like when you're in high school, you have your parents to talk to and have that accountability with grades. And it's almost the same way with Andrea, where it's like when you have her, like Colleen or Gab, and you have your meetings, like they really help you like go over what's happening this week and that accountability, and they help you a lot scheduling. And so that's probably the biggest thing of figuring out like, oh, when do I have time between practices and classes to study? When can I get this in? What would be the best way about going for all sorts of different things. So that's probably the biggest thing is scheduling it first, but yeah. Did you feel overwhelmed with all of the things you were trying to juggle? And when did when did you feel comfortable about this? I was really involved in high school at first, and I was worried when I came to college that if I got involved with too much too soon, that I would become overwhelmed and I wouldn't have enough time for anything. And that as an athlete, and I'm in engineering as well, that I wouldn't be able to manage all of it. But I've been able to coordinate a schedule and figure out and be involved with a lot of things. And so I thought being an athlete would like limit those opportunities, but it's really just opened it up to so much more.
Okay. Well, thank you, Grace, for being here and answering those questions. Those are great questions too. So now we're going to move on to John Hoffman, who's our Director of Sports Performance.
Thank you, Andrea. I'd like to review our sports performance program with the parents here, and that consists of our certified athletic trainers, our physical therapists, our strength and conditioning coaches, our physicians, and some other services at Loyola. I'm a certified athletic trainer myself, and I like to think the heart and soul of our program is our staff of certified athletic trainers. So these are the young people, all state licensed, nationally certified master's degree healthcare providers who will take care of our student athletes this year along with me. We're still working out some of the sport assignments. I take care of the men's basketball team and the rowing team, but you can kind of see ahead to look at who's going to take care of the student athlete in your family. Okay. We receive excellent medical support, most of this through LifeBridge Health. Loyola has a great partnership with LifeBridge Health, and they provide our on-campus orthopedic and sports medicine clinics. They provide our physician coverage at games, our on-campus physical therapy. They assure access to a wide variety of specialists, and they provide our medical oversight for our athletic training staff. And the heart and soul of the physician support is Dr. Craig Bennett, our team orthopedic surgeon, and Dr. Erica Gertner, our sports medicine trained primary care provider. So she's on campus twice a week, and she'll see almost anything from fairly heavy duty orthopedics to rashes and sore throats and ADHD medication refills and things like that. And Dr. Bennett sees more of our heavy duty ortho and our surgeries. We're lucky at Loyola to have excellent access to an on-campus physical therapist who's on campus 5 days a week. He works through our NovaCare program, and that's a really convenient way for our student athletes, particularly the more involved cases or post-op cases, to see a sports-minded physical therapist right here on campus. And providing most of those services is Dr. Mike Wetmore. He's been with us for about 3 or 4 years now, and he just does a great job, gets great reviews from the patients, and really keeps those complicated cases well organized. So those are the services that are provided on campus. There's a number of off-campus services as well. We have an excellent network of specialists, whether it's cardiology or hand or foot or neuro. We also have agreement with local providers for x-rays, MRIs, labs, and things like that. And for all of these services that involve an outside provider, the parent's primary insurance is billed first, and then Loyola has a secondary insurance policy. We'll talk about that here in a second. So Loyola's secondary insurance policy covers injuries that are sustained during official NCAA contest practices and conditioning. It doesn't cover general medical conditions. So if you get a bad tummy ache in the locker room, or you get a weird rash, or you get the flu, it doesn't necessarily cover those non-sports conditions. It also doesn't cover sports injuries outside of NCAA activity. That would include things like hide and go seek, spring break, and flag football. So you probably want to keep your family's policy. Remember, your family's policy gets billed first, and that would cover anything that's outside of NCAA athletics or anything that's not a sports injury, for example, the rash or the upset stomach. Our secondary policy really provides great coverage, but it doesn't provide absolutely everything. So it doesn't provide for platelet-rich plasma injections, stem cells, bone marrow transplants, chiropractic care, and massage. Those would have to be handled separately. But our sports program does provide excellent coverage for general sports orthopedic injuries. And parents often ask, how can I help with insurance? One thing, and this is super important, is please confirm that you have out-of-network coverage in Baltimore, especially with LifeBridge Health and with advanced radiology. So some parents from New England who have Kaiser or HMO insurances, they just don't work at Loyola. And there's 2 reasons that's really important. One is that if we can get the parents' primary to pick up most of the charges, that doesn't cost the parents anymore. And it certainly saves Loyola a lot of money that we can spend on t-shirts and protein shakes and fun stuff like that. And it also prevents you from paying out of pocket for any coverage, non-athletic, that could happen while your son or daughter's at Loyola. We also ask the parents to communicate about any changes in their insurance coverage. If you change insurance during the year, please let us know. We would love to get the new insurance going and make sure that all the bills get paid on time. We'd also ask you to make sure that if for some reason your son or daughter needs to see a provider outside of our normal network, that you let them know about our secondary policy. We ask the parents to cooperate about sending any bills or EOBs that they receive. And we also ask the parents to consult with the sports medicine staff before making any out-of-pocket payments for something that you think Loyola may be responsible for paying. So before you pay something and then ask for a refund later, please talk to me. My phone number will be at the end of this discussion, and I'm glad to talk to parents. I love talking to parents about insurance, especially before we spend a lot of money. And I also encourage you to plan ahead for any non-athletic charges. So if your student athlete wants to see one of our physicians for something non-athletic, we ask that you check to see, is there a copay? Did you already meet your deductible? Would you have to pay for the whole visit out of pocket? And occasionally it makes more sense for the student athlete to see the health services or go to urgent care rather than seeing one of our doctors for a non-athletic condition. That's something you really should work out with them ahead of time. We can certainly help with that, but you should have a good plan in place for things like that. Also, a good reminder is if you pay something out of an HSA account, that the health savings account, it's really hard to get you reimbursed for that. So before you do that, please talk to us and make sure there's not a better way that we can do that. Of course, there's a few concussions in sports, and this was a big deal a couple of years ago, but all NCAA schools have a very consistent concussion policy. All of our concussion cases are seen by Loyola's sports medicine trained primary care physician. We work closely with the Office of Disability Services and the student athlete support services. So if someone needs a couple days extension on a presentation or a paper or an exam, we certainly work with the offices on that. We're not ready to throw anyone back into the classroom too soon. Most concussions that we see are relatively minor. They resolve within a week or less, and they don't impact any academic progress. but we of course rely on student athlete cooperation and honesty about any concussion symptoms. Okay, some parents want to know, when should I help and when should I let Loyola take the lead? Parents often try to overhelp on routine sports orthopedics. We have excellent doctors, we have good imaging, we have good physical therapists. We can handle those routine sports orthopedic problems quite nicely. The parents also tend to underhelp on things like disordered eating, mental health services, gastrointestinal or GYN in cases like that. They sometimes don't help enough on out-of-network insurance. And we also encourage parents to help on guest membership insurance programs. So if your insurance doesn't cover your student athlete in Baltimore, we ask that you call your insurance company and ask about a guest membership or an away from home insurance policy for student athletes. This is usually free of charge, but it may take 60 days or so. So this week is a great time to get started on that. And that would allow you to use your primary insurance out of network while your son or daughter is away from school, both for athletic injuries and for non-athletic injuries. This will save you a lot of money, and it could save Loyola some money as well. We also ask parents help with online EOBs. So if you get those statements from your insurance companies that say this is not a bill, send it in and it'll help us get your bills paid on time. We also ask parents to help with medical testing results. We'll talk a little bit about sickle cell testing here in a minute. Okay. We do our pre-participation physicals on campus. There's no need to do a sports physical at home, and those have to be completed before any activity. And the date really varies by sport. For example, basketball starts some of theirs next week. And for sports like swimming, they don't come until the fall. They'll be done on the first day of class. And Dr. Erica Gertner and her colleagues are the people who spearhead those physicals, and that's right here on campus. Okay, a couple years ago, the NCAA mandated that all student athletes need to be tested for sickle cell trait. And that has to be done before any physical activity takes place. Most people were tested at birth, and most people have that somewhere in their medical records. If you don't have it in your medical records, your doctor at home could write a lab order that you could take to someplace like LabCorp or Quest and get a simple blood test. And we need to have this completed before the first day of practice. You got to remember, a positive test does not prevent an athlete from training or competing. We just take some extra precautions as far as communication and education. And if you have trouble getting an order from your doctor, you could contact us and we could help you with that order and make sure that's squared away before your student athlete arrives on campus. Okay. Loyola University has an excellent health services department. It's called Student Health Services. It really operates separately from sports medicine, although we work very closely with them. And you will submit your your immunization information and your health history to that department. They do a very good job of basic care and referrals, testing antibiotics. There are some fees for some of the things, for example, labs. So you'd want to ask about that before you go. They handle our flu shot clinic in October, and they handle the university-wide management of any communicable diseases. So although we operate separately from them, we do work closely. Okay. Parents ask a lot of questions, and that's great. Some of them are, what is ARMS? ARMS is a software program, and your student athlete probably recently received an email from Loyola to their Loyola email account, inviting them to register and use that software program for uploading forms. Particular to sports medicine, it would be the results of their sickle cell trait, their health history, and their insurance information. So that's something that a student athlete should take care of on their own, perhaps with a little bit of oversight from the parents on some of the insurance questions. They also ask, do I need to get a sports physical? No, physicals are provided on campus before the first practice. Is it okay to practice before your sickle cell test results are uploaded to ARMS? No, that has to be done before any physical activity per the NCAA. Does sports medicine need your immunization info? No, but you can upload that to the SHS portal. That's the Student Health Services. Parents ask, how can I help? Please look into a guest membership and be sure that your insurance policy will provide coverage in Baltimore, especially with LifeBridge Health and Advanced Radiology. Have a plan with your student athlete for any out-of-network needs, and communicate about changes of insurance and any bills or EOBs. Okay. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to call or email. I love talking to parents about insurance, particularly if it helps them save money or improve the care to their student athlete.
Great, thank you, John. I forgot to mention too, with the recording, we'll be sending the PowerPoint out as well. So you'll have access to all this information in the slides. So finally, last but not least, we've got both of our compliance staff here, Bill Winnick, our Associate Athletic Director, and Liz Cardinal, Assistant Director.
Great, thank you, Andrea. All right, just a few things that we are gonna cover. So first off, when your child comes to Loyola, we will be meeting individually with every one of our teams to go over a lot of our compliance initiatives. Certainly things like gambling, your academic eligibility for practice, competition, drug testing, extra benefits. So we got a thorough review with each of our teams, prior to them starting practice or competition. That being said, tonight, I do just want to touch on a couple things. First, as John Hoffman mentioned, ARMS, which is a compliance software, and that's how we send out all our forms. So the first batch of forms that we are sending out to your child has gone out. So I think 99% of our student athletes have that. There may be a case where we're still working on a transfer to, so they would not have received it. But by now, the majority, almost all, should have received an email from ARMS for some forms. And the first set of forms, as John mentioned, were our sports medicine forms. So there's a number of them that they're going to complete and return to that software. And then our initial set of compliance forms. So it has our institutional drug testing consent form. There's a Patriot League consent form in there, some student athlete information and financial aid information. That has all been sent electronically, and then they will submit that back to us. We will also be sending a second set of forms, which are some NCAA forms that are required. It's called a student athlete statement, a summary of NCAA regulations. There's a Buckley Amendment, things like that. That'll probably come out in July once the NCAA creates them. All student athletes, Division I think actually Division II and III will get those forms. So you'll have to just check with your child to make sure that they're looking for this. It will be coming to their Loyola email. All these forms are sent out to the Loyola email. And they probably need to get in the habit of checking that Loyola email, because there's going to be a lot of communication that they get from certainly compliance, from other areas in athletics, through SAS's office, things like that, that they need to check that Loyola email and make sure that they're completing that. So if for some reason, you ask your child if they did receive that and they didn't, they can reach out to myself or Liz with our information right there, and we'll make sure that, you do get that. The second thing I want to touch on is the NCAA Eligibility Center. All right. So for all incoming, certainly all freshmen, you need to be registered with the NCAA Eligibility Center. And I think pretty much most people are, because we've reviewed all our incoming recruits with our coaches. And from that, they need to be cleared on the amateurism side. So they're a final certified with amateurism. And then they also need to be certified academically, which means, their transcripts were sent in and they've been cleared. So a lot of people have. We've notified coaches if some people still have some things to do. A couple of the most common things that we see, one is the amateurism side. So when they first created this account, they filled out some questions. Well, now they have to go back in and request their final amateur certification. That actually opened up on April 1. So for a while, but people think that they finished everything and they haven't gone back in to do that. It literally takes about 30 seconds. You go back in, log into your account, request that final amateur cert, and then they'll hopefully, they should make sure that, or they should clear you as final certified for amateurism. So that would be something to certainly check with your child. The second piece is academically. Now, some people, their counselors at their school are pretty proactive, so they've sent in transcripts, but some haven't. So you might need to check, see where your status is, and if you're not cleared academically, it might be something like your high school's guidance office has to send in a copy of your final transcript with proof of graduation. So those pieces have to happen, and you need to be cleared in those two areas in order to compete. There is a small window where they'll be able to practice if that's not done, but it runs about 45 days. And if they're not cleared with that before, then they would not be able to compete. So those are the two big things compliance wise. Another thing I will touch on just real briefly. So in regards to your housing, our coaches will be kind of creating lists, and a lot of our coaches will, with ideas of like other teammates that would be good roommates for you, and they'll send that to myself and Student Life. However, they still do need to register with the housing when they go through the orientation process. So I would imagine that your coach would be getting in touch with you to discuss who they're thinking they're going to room with, if it's in a standard 2-person room or 4-person apartment or 6-person, those types of things. But you would want to talk with your coach to see, what they're planning on the housing. And then when you participate in the orientation, you'll also register for housing. So those are the things I wanted to touch on. Are there any questions, certainly for myself, for SAS, for John? At this time, we'd love to answer them.
We had one question.
Oh,
Is
good.
the amateur certification is on the NCAA site? That's on the Eligibility Center site.
Yes. So, yep, it's in the NCAA Eligibility Center. Again, your child would have to create an account with that, and then once they create that account, they'll answer those amateurism questions. But again, most people have done that. If you haven't, it's not the end of the world. You can still create one, that's for sure. And certainly once you create them, then you'll have to kind of go through those steps.
Any other questions for anyone? I know John had a lot of information, especially, but any questions for the group?
Hopefully we were so thorough. We didn't need any, but I know our contact information is there. So if, after this ends, you have something, I'm sure all of us, you can reach out. We'd be happy to answer.
And 2 quick announcements I want to make. I know we kind of briefly touched on it. Oh, we do have a question, sorry. How do you prevent surprise medical bills, John?
Great question. The best way to prevent surprise medical bills is to make sure that the insurance that's in your student's ARMS account is the most recent insurance you have, to communicate ahead of time about any changes in coverage, and to make sure you have coverage for your student athlete in Baltimore, especially with Advanced Radiology and LifeBridge Health.
So yes, 2 quick announcements. So I know Gab touched on it a little, but SA for SJ is going to be having 2 virtual summer conversations based on, or going off of a movie that's on Netflix and then a series. We'll be sending that information out to the students in the coming days. So just as Bill mentioned, please be having them check their Loyola emails. If they want to participate in that, they are more than welcome to. It's kind of a easy way to kind of get involved with the Loyola community even before they get on campus. And then lastly, for anyone that is coming to summer orientation either next week or the following, our office will be open from 9 to 10 a.m. kind of during check-in. If you do want to stop by before all the sessions and programming starts, to just say hello to me, to Gab. Colleen will be on vacation, but you can meet with our office. We're located in the basement of Jenkins Hall. Room 015 is our office room. So feel free to stop by and just say hello in that time frame. We'd love to chat with you.
John, we do have another medical question about a student who's from Guatemala and they don't have the sickle cell testing. Is it okay for them to schedule it in the US when they get here?
Yes, we'd be glad to help with that. Depending on the sport, it might cause a slight delay in practice, so we might want to get ahead of that if we can.
It's tennis.
Could cause a delay in practice. Let's contact them ahead of time and make a plan.
And then as far as the transcripts, I'm not sure if that's just a general email that they send to everyone, whether you've sent your transcript in or not. The best way to find out is to email whoever sent the email saying that they have not received it yet, to double check. Any other questions?
Well, thank you everyone so much for joining. I'll go ahead and stop the recording.